Hi, everyone. It was a Monday morning, and we were sitting at the kitchen table after finishing breakfast. I was sipping my coffee while reading the newspaper when my wife said, "Chad, could you put the newspaper down? I need to talk to you." I placed the newspaper on the table, and she continued, "I'm leaving you, Chad. I want a divorce. Is that all?" I asked, picking the newspaper back up and flipping to the sports section. "I'm serious, Chad," she insisted. I ignored her, which only made her more upset. "Chad, put down that newspaper and talk to me about this," she exclaimed. "I have nothing to say except goodbye. It's not much of a loss anyway. You haven't been a good wife for over a year, so just go," I said firmly. I put the newspaper down, stood up, and walked to my home office. I grabbed a notebook and pen from my desk, pulled an envelope from a drawer, and returned to the kitchen table. On the top sheet of the notebook, I wrote, "Tyrone, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank God she is leaving me." As I was about to place the note in the envelope, I had an idea. I took out one of the lottery tickets I had bought the night before and added it to the envelope. Then I wrote, "Maybe if you get lucky and win, it'll be enough to keep her satisfied, so she won't cheat again. Good luck, kid. You're going to need it." I signed it as a very grateful Chad F. I folded the note, placed it in the envelope, sealed it, addressed it, and handed it to Kathy. "If you see him, give him this," I said. She took it, shock written all over her face. Just because you think I'm clueless doesn't mean I actually am," I added. Then I paused and said, "Actually, perhaps I should mail it myself. I don't trust you not to open it, read it, and throw it away. Now, why don't you go pack your things and leave my life? Since you're the one leaving, you need to be out of the house as soon as possible," I stated firmly. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm not moving out just so you can bring your lover in," she snapped. I stood up, poured coffee into a travel mug, topped it off, and headed to work. On my way to work, I stopped by the bank and closed our savings and checking accounts. I also emptied our safe deposit box. After that, I went to a bank closer to my office and opened new accounts in my name only. Next, I called to cancel all our joint credit cards and arranged for new cards to be issued in my name. Once that was done, I focused on my day-to-day tasks at work. I stayed late at the office and later had dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, Maria. During the conversation, I casually mentioned that I was back on the market and asked if her sister was still interested in me. Maria laughed and said, "Forget about my sister. If you're single again, I want to be first in line." Maria had started working for me as a secretary 10 years ago. She was so efficient and reliable that I promoted her to assistant 4 years ago, and 2 years later, to my executive assistant. Once, on a Sunday, I had hosted a backyard barbecue and invited Maria. She had to decline because her sister, Tara, was visiting from out of town. I suggested she bring her sister along. Maria was a strikingly beautiful blonde with a vibrant personality. On the following Monday, Maria laughed and told me that Tara had developed a crush on me. I chuckled and said, "Never mention this to Kathy. She can be, and often is, insanely jealous." Now, here was Maria saying that she herself was interested in me. I had never imagined she could feel that way. "All right," I said jokingly. "Then Tara moves to second place, and you can take first." "I'm not joking at all, boss," Maria replied. "I'm completely serious. I want to give it a try." "Maria, you might change your mind when you hear what I've been dealing with," I warned. "What exactly is going on?" she asked. "My wife wants a divorce," I explained. "I'm leaving the house to her and her lover. I have no idea what their plans are yet." "Her lover?" Maria asked, surprised. "Yes," I said. "She started an affair with him about 1.5 years ago. I guess she finally decided that part-time wasn't enough and wants to make it full-time." "How long have you known?" Maria asked, stunned. "Since the beginning," I admitted. "I found out almost immediately. How did you figure it out? A friend of mine saw her going into a motel with the guy and called me. I hired a private investigator to follow her for a week. He gave me all the proof I needed. A year and a half? And you didn't do anything about it. Maria asked in disbelief. What was I supposed to do? Get angry and throw my life into chaos? In this state, divorce is no fault. That means everything would be split in half. I'd have to sell the house and split the proceeds with her. I'd lose the pool, the hot tub, my woodworking shop, and the 3-car garage. I'd end up living in some small apartment. No thanks. Instead, I decided to stay quiet, let her cook, do my laundry, and keep the house in order. How could you stand being around her, knowing she was cheating on you? You'd be surprised, I said. Love can quickly turn to hate, and after a while, hate fades into indifference. I can't believe a healthy guy like you could go a year and a half without sex, Maria said, surprised. Who said anything about going without sex? I replied, as long as Kathy was offering, I was accepting. The frequency did decrease a bit, though. I avoided her on the days I knew she was with him. Other than that, the only difference was that I stopped making love and just had sex. It was purely physical. Do you have any idea why she did it? Maria asked. No idea, I said with a shrug. But he probably wasn't the first. You think she's had other lovers? I can't say for sure, but I have my suspicions, I admitted. In the 10 years we've been married, there were 4 times I can remember when she fell into a certain mood. For a while, she acted the same way she's been acting over the past year and a half, since she got involved with this guy. Just a guess. But I'd almost bet that those other times were for the same reason. If no one had seen her with this guy and I hadn't been tipped off, I probably would have dismissed her recent behavior as just another one of those things women go through. Maybe I'm wrong in my assumptions, but it doesn't really matter. I know for sure about this affair, and that's all I need to know to understand she's a cheater. What are you going to do now? Maria asked. Wait, I said simply. Wait? Wait for what? If you're going to wait and let her file, what happens if she doesn't? Maria asked. What if her lover doesn't give her the money for it? That could leave us stuck in a messy situation. If she files first, she might use your involvement with me against you. She could claim adultery, and even though she cheated, she could argue that you did too. If you file first, though, you're making it clear that the marriage is over from your perspective. Legally, anything you do after filing wouldn't be considered her business. Sure, technically, you'll still be married until the divorce is finalized, but no court will hold it against you if we only start seeing each other after you filed. That's why I think it's best for me to keep my distance until you or Kathy takes legal action. If we wait for her, it could take years or maybe just a week, but it would all be under her control. If you file, though, you could meet with a lawyer early tomorrow and serve Kathy by Thursday. That would give me the weekend to work on winning you over. Winning me over? I asked, half smiling. I'm dead serious, boss, Maria replied with a playful grin. What's the point of being first in line if I don't take advantage of it? She was right, and I knew it. So I pulled out my cell phone and speed-dialed Alex. Alex and I had been friends since 3rd grade. He was a lawyer who specialized in family law, a polite term for divorce law. When he answered, I said, Alex, I need your legal help, and explained the situation. He expressed his sympathy, especially since he and his wife Sally were friends with Kathy and me. He admitted he liked Kathy, but assured me he would handle everything. I'll start as soon as I get to the office tomorrow morning, Alex said. Come by during lunchtime to sign the papers, and we can grab lunch afterward. Then, just to be a jerk, I told Alex I wanted a restraining order. To justify it, I lied and claimed that Kathy had threatened me by saying her lover Tyrone would straighten me out if I caused her any trouble for leaving. Alex laughed and said, That's pure nonsense, and I know it. But I'll still file it for you. You know there'll be a hearing on this order within 10 days, right? He continued. I can get the restraining order and have it served. But it'll only stay in effect if the judge approves it at the hearing. I understand, I replied. Right now, My main goal is to get her out of the house and keep her out for a while. We don't have kids, so she has no real reason to use the house while the divorce is in progress. I'm sticking to the principle of possession being 9/10 of the law. There's no reason for a judge to order me out and let her stay in, and that's what I'm aiming for. When we talked this morning, I told her to leave, but I don't know what I'll find when I get home. She might already be gone, or she might still be there. Since I can't be sure, I plan to have her served at work. Is there no chance you two could come to some kind of agreement? Alex asked. None, I said firmly. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, Alex replied. I hung up and looked across the table at Maria. What do you have planned for me this weekend? I asked. Maria smiled and laid out her ideas, which sounded pretty good to me when I got home. Kathy was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some papers. Why are you still here? I asked, walking to the fridge and grabbing a beer. This is my house too, she said firmly. I'll stay here until I can make other arrangements. If you don't like my company, feel free to move out. Not a chance, I replied. Sit down and let's discuss what we're going to do. There's nothing to discuss, I said, taking a seat across from her. I already know what I'm going to do. And I don't care what you plan to do, Chad, Kathy said coldly. There are things we need to work out. No, Kathy, I replied firmly. There's nothing to work out. It's simple. You said you want a divorce, so go and get it. You need to hire a lawyer, file the papers, and cover all the court costs. As for me, I'll fight you tooth and nail for every little thing. This is a no-fault state, so everything gets split 50-50ths. Decisions will need to be made about who gets what. I'll drag this out as long as possible just to pile up your attorney fees. You do know lawyers don't work for free, right? You want the coffee table? Guess what? I want it too. You want the couch? Too bad, Kathy. It has great sentimental value to me, and I simply must have it. Why are you acting like this all of a sudden? She asked, frustration creeping into her voice. You didn't seem to care about any of this before. You didn't even show any emotion when I told you I wanted a divorce. All you said was to pack my things and leave. That was before I had time to think about it, I said, meeting her eyes. Then I took a risk and added, I let you off the hook the first 3 times because you didn't want a divorce. I loved you enough to stay quiet and stay with you because you always came back to me. Kathy's face changed, and she looked away when I mentioned the first 3 times. That reaction all but confirmed my suspicions. It's hard to say why I stayed with you. I said softly that I didn't file for divorce because, at first, I thought maybe I had done something to really upset you. I said, my voice calm but firm. I figured this was your way of getting back at me. I thought that, eventually, you'd end your affairs. Foolishly. I believed it was because you realized you loved me and decided to come back. I looked down at the floor and noticed the dirt on my shoes. Taking a deep breath, I continued. I thought this thing with Tyrone was just a repeat of the previous times, but now I see I was wrong. I've come to understand that you're nothing more than a cheater. If you hadn't decided to leave me for Tyrone, you'd have moved on to some other guy in 6 months or a year. I paused, letting my words sink in before continuing. Thinking about it, I realized I needed some kind of revenge. What I really wanted to do was take a thick belt and lash you with it until your skin broke and you bled on the floor. But I knew that would land me in jail. So instead, I decided to make this divorce as difficult and expensive for you as possible. I leaned back, folding my arms. You're right. This is also your home. And if you've decided to stay, I can't force you to leave. But let me make one thing very clear. I don't have to like it. And I don't have to talk to you, I said, my tone cold. Move your stuff to one of the spare bedrooms and stay the hell away from me. I finished my beer and went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom to get ready for bed. I felt a sense of accomplishment. I had given her something to think about. She would need to discuss everything with Tyrone and make decisions, which would take time. Time that Alex could use to serve Kathy and secure the restraining order. I could be wrong. Maybe Kathy had already met with a lawyer, and the divorce papers were on their way to me. But it seemed more likely that I had taken the remaining funds when I canceled the credit cards. The cash I withdrew from the bank was about what I expected. If she had seen a lawyer, she would have used our money to pay for it. Of course, Tyrone might have covered the bill. All I could do now was wait and hope that Alex took the first step. I left the house before Kathy came out of her bedroom. I went to a local bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast. While sipping my coffee, I made a list of people to call once Kathy was served. I wasn't going to let her make me out to be the bad guy. I would tell everyone about the divorce and explain why it was happening. At work, Maria told me she was really looking forward to the weekend, and I found myself hoping the same. I met with Alex for lunch and signed the papers. He said he would head to the county building after lunch to file the petition. "You still want her served at work?" Alex asked. "Damn right I do," I replied. "I think around 10 tomorrow. Call me as soon as it happens. I want the locks changed before she can come back home." After lunch, I returned to work and arranged for the next day off. Before leaving the office, I called a locksmith and scheduled a quick service for the following day. It cost a bit more, but I felt it was worth it. When I got home, Kathy's car was in the driveway, but she must have decided to stay in her room and not get in my way because I didn't see her. I left the house before Kathy came downstairs and went to a bed and breakfast cafe for breakfast. Nina, the waitress, asked me where Kathy was. "I always saw you two together, and here you are, 2 days in a row without her." "You won't see us together anymore," I replied. "We're splitting up." "I see," she said, taking my order. When she placed the bill on the table, she added, "My phone number is on the back, not the restaurant's number, mine." I was speechless as Nina walked away. 2 women had shown interest in 2 days, so why hadn't I been enough for the woman I married? I'd never know, and I wasn't going to ask. I drank my coffee and read the morning newspaper, waiting for the time when Kathy usually left for work. Then I went home and started packing Kathy's things, moving them to the garage. At 10:05, Alex called and said the papers had been served. I called the locksmith, and within 20 minutes, he was at work. It wasn't even an hour later when Kathy's car sped up the driveway. She couldn't miss the wide-open garage door and the large cardboard sign that read, "Kathy, all your things are here in the garage." She stood there, staring at the sign for a minute, then tried to enter the house. Of course, her keys didn't work. She rang the doorbell, but I didn't answer. Eventually, she left. I peeked into the garage and saw she had taken a couple of bags of her things. 2 minutes after she drove off, my cell phone rang. It was Kathy. "Hello, you're an a-hole. Did you really have to embarrass me in front of my colleagues?" she shouted. "It's better than letting you humiliate me in front of mine," I replied. "What's this restraining order crap?" she asked. "I was afraid you'd ask Tyrone to come beat me up for being rude to you. That's why," I said. "I need to get into the house to grab some things. All your things are in the garage, Kathy. I didn't change the garage door code, so your opener should still work. If what you need isn't there, make a list and tell me where it is, and I'll move it to the garage." "Stop being ridiculous, Chad," she snapped. "You're making this much harder than it needs to be," Kathy said. "Sorry, Kathy. Causing you some inconvenience doesn't adequately repay the years you tormented me. But I need to do something for my own mental health. Just be grateful I didn't get violent. Goodbye." After hanging up, I sat down with the phone and started calling everyone on my list. I was shocked to hear some reactions. 2 people weren't surprised at all. One said, "Finally caught her, huh?" And the other remarked, "I always thought you had an open marriage. She was always out with some guy, and you never mentioned it." I quickly crossed those 2 off my friends list. Kathy's parents were the most upset by the news and tried to tell me I must be mistaken. I always liked them, and they treated me like the son they never had, but I wasn't going to let Kathy tell them her version and make it seem like it was all my fault. If I let that happen, they'd think poorly of me, and I didn't want that. After dealing with the calls, I went through the house one more time to gather Kathy's things, then made myself lunch. I had just finished eating when the guys from Erie Security arrived. They clearly didn't trust me, and they were certain Kathy would violate the restraining order and try to break into the house. So, I decided to install a security system, complete with cameras. After Kathy's actions on Thursday at work, I told Maria that we were ready to go for the weekend. She smiled, clearly excited. Tomorrow night, dinner and dancing to start with, she said, returning my grin. When I got home, Kathy did exactly what I expected. She took some of her things and then broke into the house through the connecting door from the garage. The kitchen was a disaster. Plates and glasses smashed all over the floor. In the living room, several lamps were broken. But what made me smile was the sight of her pulling all my clothes out of the closet, piling them on the floor, and then urinating on them. All of this was recorded, showing not only that she violated the restraining order, but also acted maliciously and destructively. This was evidence. I called Alex about the restraining order hearing. He contacted the police who arrived, took a report, and snapped some photos. The next day, Kathy was arrested at work and taken to jail. She was fingerprinted, photographed, and brought before a judge, charged with violating the restraining order and willfully destroying private property. To my surprise, the judge set a hearing date and released Kathy on her own recognizance. Despite the chaos, my date with Maria was fun, and we scheduled a second date for Saturday. That too went well, and on Sunday, we enjoyed a lovely picnic together. On Monday, there was a hearing for the restraining order. When the judge saw the security camera footage, he not only made the restraining order permanent, but also ordered me to replace all the destroyed items, pay for the dry cleaning of my clothes, and cover the cost of cleaning the bedroom. He gave Kathy 10 days to comply or face jail time for contempt of court. Just to be a jerk, I hired the most expensive cleaning company to TO my disappointment. Kathy managed to get the money to do everything the judge ordered. I never got to see her jail for contempt of court. Over the next 2 weeks, Maria and I met often, but nothing more happened beyond a few intense kisses. Neither of us felt comfortable, as I was still married. However, we were slowly getting closer, and things were becoming more serious. We did not contest a divorce, and it was finalized in 6 months. It was a standard no-fault divorce, with everything split equally. I refinanced the house and bought out Kathy's share. I had been saving money in a separate account for an unexpected round-the-world trip to celebrate our anniversary. Since Kathy didn't know about it, she didn't get a cent. She also had no idea about the 2 certificates of deposit I had in the safe, which I bought with my last 2 bonus checks. I had one small victory. Kathy was awarded alimony for 2 years or until she remarried, but it was only $100 a week instead of the $500 she had tried to get. This was unexpected. Alex told me it was because we were lucky with the judges assigned to my cases. The judge for the restraining order and the judge for the divorce were cousins who apparently discussed their cases. Both had also experienced cheating wives in the past. Neither judge believed an innocent husband should be punished for the actions of a cheating wife, though they still followed the law. 7 months after the divorce, Kathy wasn't doing so well. She was living with her parents, clearly not happy with Tyrone. One day, I found myself at a bar at the Hilton, enjoying a beer and a steak sandwich. That's when someone took the stool next to me and asked if he could buy me a beer. I turned to see it was Kathy's former lover, Cyrus. I invited him to join me, and he ordered us both a beer. After taking a sip, he stared at his glass for a few moments, peeling the label off the bottle. A small pile of label bits formed in front of him before he spoke. "I didn't mean to screw things up for you," he said, still not looking up. The night I met her, she wasn't wearing any wedding rings. I had no idea she was married. She wasn't acting like a married woman either. She was at Bud's bar with some girls from work. When I asked her to dance, she agreed. We danced a few more times, and when I asked her out, she agreed. I quickly fell for her, and within a month, we were having sex whenever we could. We had to use motels since I was living with two roommates, and one of them was always around. She couldn't go to her place either because she said she lived with her disabled mother, which also explained why we couldn't see each other often. Eventually, I got my own apartment, and we didn't need motels anymore. Even though our meetings were regular, I was in love with her and planning to propose. I was going to buy a house big enough for the two of us and her mother. But then a guy I knew asked me why I was dating a cheater. I was ready to confront him when he told me that Kathy was married and had a history of infidelity. He told me she had cheated on you with his brother 2 years ago, and when you found out, you ended things with her. At first, I didn't believe it, but then I received your letter. I sat on it for a week before confronting her. She broke down in tears and said she didn't love you. She claimed you were abusive, and she was afraid to leave because you threatened to kill her and anyone she was with. By that point, I had already done some digging and realized she was lying, so I ended things. Still, she was good in bed, and since you kicked her out, I let her move in with me, but only if she was willing to sleep with me. Everything was fine until the divorce was finalized, and she started talking about marriage. That's when I ended it. I came home from work one day to find she was gone. There were rumors that I knew about the affair, and someone asked me why I didn't divorce her immediately. I shrugged and replied, "You said it yourself. She was damn good in bed." I decided to let things be, enjoying the sex and the fact that there was someone to cook, clean, and do the laundry. I probably would have stayed in that arrangement if she hadn't mentioned wanting a divorce. Cyrus took another sip of his beer and added, "I never thought I'd say this, especially to you, but I miss having her in my bed." He finished his beer, stood up, and took something out of his pocket. He placed it on the counter and pushed it toward me. "What's this?" I asked. "It's the lottery ticket you gave me," he said. "It's a winner. This is your half." He handed me a cashier's check for a very large amount. "I waited to give it to you so you wouldn't have to split it with her in the divorce. See you around." And just like that, he left. When I returned to the office, my assistant Jan looked at me and said, "You look like the cat that just ate the canary. Was lunch that good?" I smiled. "Lunch was impressive," I said. Jan then remembered. "Maria no longer works for you, huh?" "She's home painting the room that will become the nursery when the twins arrive.